the ANC government continues to, display its self-hate for black people. Black children are outside Wits University today around a body that has been killed by a policeman or police of Begitele, who has demonstrated that there's no difference from the apartheid police and the police that are now, under the guise of what is called a democratic dispensation. So we're not shocked by this, but also we must also remember, and we must not forget this. Not so long ago, Blade Zamanda, when he was the Minister of Higher Education, during our time as students, he publicly uttered, words like students must fall. His words today have come to pass. 20,000 students are being registered at UNISA. Today, someone got killed because they are trigger-happy police who have no concern for black life, who have no concern for their own needs as even parents. Although they are police, they even forget that their own children can't even go to school. When they wear that uniform, a demon possesses them. A white demon takes over their minds, and they forget to see black people for who they are. They only see white people. In Senegal, we saw white, violent men, fighting with police, entering the court, destroying property. But today, students who are peacefully protesting are being shot at. It goes to show that this country has got no interest in preserving black life, has got no interest in black people, but only supports and defends white people.
We as the DA feel that the university should allow students to register for the academic year and work out an installment payment plan on how they will then settle their historic debt. We are also mindful that the universities are sitting with a predicament where their funding was also cut. But I am sure that when universities sit with the minister, that they can come up with a solution that can salvage the whole situation, because we cannot go on like this, because most of the students will now be outside. And what we are saying is that as a country, we cannot allow the unemployment rate to be exacerbated because we have failed the next generation of students.
Students are allowed to protest in demand of what our government since 1994 has promised to our learners and our students, which is free education. Now, it's very upsetting to see that the same government is now using police to kill students and South Africans, even civilians, because we hear that this person who has just been shot is a civilian who was coming from a clinic or from a healthcare facility, and it had nothing to do with the protest. But even though, even if that was the matter, but it still remains that it was the constitutional right of the students to actually protest in demanding free education as promised by our government. NSFAS was presenting in Scopa Portfolio Committee yesterday, and this is a standing committee on public accounts, and we can all tell that there is a disaster in NSFAS, but those who are bearing the brunt are the students subsequent to the malmanagement and the mismanagement and administration of funds in NSFAS. So we do want to implore our minister to draw attention to this particular matter and to implore IPID to also draw his attention to this matter. And we hope that the management of the university as well will be sober when engaging with the student leadership.
Let's get more reaction on the protest at Wits University. And of course, we know that one person was killed after police fired rubber bullets. And Dewa Mavhinga from the South African, who is the director at the Human Rights Watch, joins us now. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome. I mean, the situation got out of hand this morning. An innocent man who went to have his health checked, coming out of the clinic, he walked right into his death. What's your reaction?
Well, it's shocking and it's very sad that a civilian had to die. This is really a sign of the excessive use of force by the police, policing in a space in Braamfontein where people will be going about their business. So it is really a call for the police to stop the use of excessive force, and for the Independent Police Investigations Directorate to be immediately involved to investigate what happened and to ensure that there is justice and accountability for the people responsible for the murder of this innocent man. And in fact, there is need for the police to ensure that the right of students at Wits University to protest for free education is protected. There is no need to use excessive force, and there is every need to respect the rights that are enshrined in the South African Constitution, and to ensure that this issue of fees at Wits University is resolved, because this is not the first time that students are protesting. There was another wave of fees must fall protests in 2015 and 2016. So there is need for the authorities in South Africa to completely resolve this matter and prevent these protests, and to ensure that the police do not overstep in terms of their policing duties.
There's confusion here. When I spoke to the FF Plus, they said when students protest, when they break and bend, they will get what's coming their way, and they should know that when they protest violently, it doesn't help anything. And of course, we are engaged here when we were saying that also students get frustrated when they try to engage management and they do not really have the end of the negotiations going their way. When management walks away from them, they take to the streets. So what happens in terms of the rules of engagement to avert this kind of situation that we find ourselves in?
I think to begin with, it is important for the university authorities to engage with the students in a way that is satisfactory to address the concerns and demands of the students, number one. Number two, it is important for the police and the university authorities to know that students and citizens of South Africa, everyone in South Africa, have a right to peacefully protest. So if there is a blockade and a frustration of efforts to protest, then that could result in acts of violence. Number three, when the police are policing protests, they need to operate within the framework of the law to prevent the excessive use of force and to ensure that there is no fatality that results from their policing. And also that the police should not be targeting bystanders, or should know that if they are using excessive force, it could reasonably cause harm to people who may not otherwise be involved in the process, as has happened today, that a civilian, who had nothing to do with the protest, who did not even know what was happening, was caught up in the fiasco. So the right to protest peacefully is guaranteed, and the police need to operate within the framework. We have got a legacy of brutal force that has not been held accountable within the police force in South Africa, and this needs to be addressed. There are many incidences where we have seen the police using excessive force, where otherwise the force was inappropriate and not minimal. So there is need for better training, but also for holding accountable members of the police who go rogue and step over the mark in terms of their policing duties.
The police were saying that police have been trained to know when and how to shoot. And I didn't get a clear answer from Lieutenant K. Makubela earlier. I tried to ask the question in different ways. He didn't answer me. He said, no, they will investigate. Now, before we even investigate, sir, it's a problem when you see students sitting down and singing, when the students are having their hands in the air, saying, we just want to talk to management. Why are you blocking us? That is a point of frustration, and it's a powder keg. Absolutely
agreed. It is a violation of a constitutional right to peaceful protest. The police must not protect or stand between the management of the university and students. They must only ensure that there is peace. So where students are sitting down, they have their hands in the air, it means they are peaceful, and the police must respect that. You know, to talk of the police being trained when to shoot is being insensitive in a case where we have a person who has been killed as a result of the reckless conduct and excessive use of force by the police. And what we're saying is that this is the time now to immediately have an independent mechanism step in to investigate, not only to investigate, but to ensure that those responsible should be held to account, so that there is a clear message to the rest of the police service that you cannot overstep your mark. And even as the protests are ongoing, the conduct of the police in the coming days must be exemplary. They must step back and allow students to express their constitutional rights, to peacefully raise concerns around free education in South Africa and at Wits University particularly.
So if the police are saying that they are going to investigate, it doesn't help anything. Damage has been done. What's done is done. Somebody has died here. And the question is, if they have been trained, like Kema Kubela has said, the problem here is that if students have their right, what if they want to continue with this protest tomorrow? I mean, we had live visuals where the protests were ongoing and there's this heavy police presence now. As parents, let's speak for the parents' perspective. Are our children safe to be doing for their education out there? And secondly, are civilians safe to be passing there? And then what if they could be caught in the crossfire?
Well, certainly, students are not safe, civilians are not safe, as we have seen from the unfortunate incident today. And this is why those responsible for the unfortunate incident of the killing of an innocent bystander should be punished by law. Because if they are not punished, it breeds impunity, which is a condition where people can continue to disregard the law, to disregard human rights, knowing that nothing will happen to them. So we need really to ensure that this incident is thoroughly investigated and appropriately punished to prevent further occurrences. And going forward, like you correctly said, if students want to continue with their peaceful protests, what it means is that the police must step back and be respectful of the law and of the constitutional rights that are enshrined in the South African Constitution, and not interfere or in a way frustrate the efforts of students to demand their basic right, which is free education in South Africa, if they so wish to engage with the authorities at Wits University. The coming in of the police, in a way, is what is stoking the fires. And as South Africa, there is need to look back at history, the history of...
okay, so may I come in there, sir? My apologies to interrupt you. I just want, I've just seen our visuals here showing now where the students are chasing the police officer away who was trying to address them. Now, from the angle of the students' behavior, if they are now antagonistic towards the police who are politely approaching them to speak to them and address them about the situation before chaos, before any gun can be shot or before any tear gas can be shot, what guarantee should we have from the students that when they protest, they won't damage property, they won't burn, and they won't inconvenience the business of the day for other people? Because if you have a right to protest, you also need to respect the rights of other people. So now here, there's a double whammy. The students end up being the victims, the police end up shooting, members of the public also get inconvenienced, their shops can even get looted as a result.
Well, what is important is to know that the appropriate authority to address the concerns of the students is the Wits University management, number one. Number two, so it means that the police should not necessarily be addressing students themselves, but also what is important is for the police to use what is called appropriate force, appropriate responses, not the use of stun grenades or the firing of rubber bullets, because that would be excessive and would trigger confusion, pandemonium and chaos. So there is need for the police to be trained not in dispersal of crowds or violence, but in stepping back and ensuring that there are no disturbances, but fundamentally allowing people the right to express themselves without interference. That is very important.
Okay, why do protests have to be violent?
Well, there will be incidences where there could be violence, but violence is not protected as an act in the law. When that happens, then the police must use appropriate responses, and this is what they should be retrained in, to have appropriate responses, not excessive use of force. So if the police, if there is throwing of stones, the police must then apprehend and remove those individuals from the crowd and not stoke the fires further. What we have seen with South African policing mostly has been the brutality that is accompanied by excessive use of force that does not address, the manner in which protesting can be allowed to go on with minimal interference.
Yeah, all right. I wish I could ask you more about why do protests have to be violent, but it's okay. I mean, I wanted to ask from the side of the students in terms of, do we need tires to be bent on the tarred roads? Do we need those stones and all that? Who are we going to throw them at? But it's fine. Our time is up, sir. But thank you so much for making time to speak to us. Dewa Mavhinga, who is South Africa Human Rights Watch director, and reaction now more from political parties, and we also have to get to hear what others have to say.